12 p.m. Hello and welcome to Newsbeat. We are live from our studios here at Northridge in Accra. My name is Kenneth. Jesse here, stories making headlines this afternoon. Senior Staff Association of Universities of Ghana team up with Teachers and Education Workers Union to declare an indefinite strike against management of their institutions. Inflation rate hits record high as Ghana records 31.7% inflation for the month of July. MP for Ningo Pram has alleged that the Electoral Commission has lost its data set, compelling it to compile a new voters register. Traders at Mampontin in the Kwabre East municipality of the Ashanti region threaten not to vote if government fails to complete their market complex. And later on in the program, we will take you to Kenya, where tallying of results is ongoing a day after millions voted for a successor to incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta. We have details coming up shortly. Stay with us. Welcome to the program. Now, the Senior Staff Association of the Universities of Ghana and two teacher unions have declared an indefinite strike over what they say is an ambush migration of the salaries of staff. In a statement to this effect, the three unions blame their action to government's failure to pay salaries due for July on time without communicating it to them. Let's have a look at the content of the release. So this is it, declaration of an indefinite industrial strike. The executives councils of the SSA, UG, GAUA and TEU wish to inform all our cherished and loyal members of the University for Development Studies, Tamale, of our immediate declaration of an indefinite industrial action against management of our institution with effect from today, August 10th, 2022. Let's go on to Zoom and speak with leadership of the union. We have Zachariah on the line right now. Zachariah, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Why have you taken such stance this time? Hello, Zachariah. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Zachariah. Welcome to Newsbeat in Accra. Why have you taken the stance to embark on an indefinite strike at this time?
Yes, at this time is because good afternoon to your listeners. As indicated in our press release, we have been always been talking about the possibility of being migrated to controller.
Hello, Zachariah. Zachariah, can you hear me? Unfortunately, we've not been able to communicate with Zachariah. Away from that, the Ghana Statistical Service has reported of an inflationary figure of 31.7% for July 2022. This means that general prices of goods and services increased by 3.1% in July. So this is the Consumer Price Index and rate of inflation for July 2022. CPI for July 2022 was 173.0 relative to 121.3 in July 2021. Year-on-year inflation rate for July 2022 was 31.7%, that is approximately 32%. This means that in the month of July 2022, the general price level was 31.7% higher than July 2021. Month-on-month inflation between June 2022 and July 2022 was 3.1%. So these are the figures. We have the month, we have the CPI, we have the monthly inflation, we have the yearly inflation. So for June 2021, for instance, you can see that the CPI was 129.2%. On a monthly basis, that was 1.3%. And on a yearly basis, it was 7.8%. Let's come down to July, which was 173% points, which is translated to 3.1% on a monthly basis and 31.7% on a yearly basis. So for the second quarter, we have an average of 27.0%. Now, food inflation, which was 0.437%, was 32.3%. Last month, this was 30.7%. Average over last 12 months was 19.4%. Right, let's try to understand these figures. I have my colleague Winston Taki joining me right now in the studio to explain to us what these actually mean. Winston, so we've seen that we've had an increase of 3.1% of inflation for the month of July. What does this mean?
It means that the general prices of goods and services increased by 3.1% compared to that of June. In June, actually, the prices were going astronomically high compared to the price differences. Between April and June, the price increased by 3.4%. But this increase seems to be quite marginal compared to the earlier increment that had happened. Some are saying that the figure being projected by the Ghana Statistical Service doesn't really reflect the reality in the market, because in the month of July, we saw the prices of fuel and most components which plays critical role in the food basket going higher. So as you can see, for this month, that is July's data being released, transport stands at 4.9, that is month to month. Compared to that of June, it has increased by 4.9% averagely. That is the highest recorded in terms of inflation. Housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels. Looking at water and electricity, we are hoping, according to PURC, coming month, we are likely to see increment in tariffs. This is likely to push inflation to hit possibly between 34 going, and which is seriously going to affect general price of goods and services in the market. We know that furnishing, household equipment, and routine maintenance also contribute to 42.0%, with recreation, sports, and culture. Food and clothing, food and non-alcoholic beverages generally contribute 32.3%. This is something that we know generally people buy in and out.
Exactly, because you cannot avoid eating or taking in beverages or water or anything. So that is very striking. And the most striking one is the transport, which is occupying the top spot. And then the second one is housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, which are also unavoidable. We witnessed some marginal decrease in fuel in the month of July. Is that likely to reflect in the next month inflation figures?
Not necessarily, because the general depreciation of the Ghana cedi has taken away the windfall that we are likely to benefit at the pumps. As of now, the cedi are depreciated against the dollar, which plays a critical role in the pricing formula of fuel at the pumps. COPE projected that we shall see a decline of 3%. And when the decline start being in effect, we are certainly going to see inflation going up, and transport generally goes up once the fuel prices goes up as well.
For the past few months, every inflation figure keeps breaking records. Are we likely to see a record number next month?
It depends on currently where we are. We are both in the middle. We've seen the IMF conversation going on. The key element that they are considering has to do with inflation. Another has to do with our debt. Another has to do with our forex management, our currency management. As of now, I have inside information that access to dollar has become very critical in general pricing of goods, where there's also general capital flight currently happening. So it's likely that in the next 2 months, inflation will keep rising, and citizens have to adjust quickly before they tend to see value of goods and services go up.
That's quite interesting. Let's look at the disaggregation of inflation in eastern and western regions for July 2022. So these are the highlights. If you can see clearly, 29.2% domestic inflation in June. And then these are the figures, 31.3% imported inflation June 2022. It was slightly above the national average. And let's look at this one. This is 38.1%. That is the highest regional inflation rate. Eastern region, an unlikely suspect. If any region was supposed to top this figure, many would have predicted the Greater Accra region. And we have the lowest region being the 19% in the Upper East region. So the 31.7% year-on-year inflation for July 2022. Food inflation, which is quite interesting, in June 2022 was 30.7%. And then we're witnessing 32.3%. Come down, you see 31.3%, 29.1%. Well, so let's talk about the Eastern region being the region on top of that list. Is that surprising?
Not necessarily. We have to look at, first of all, the role the Eastern region plays in our general outlook of GDP, the contribution in terms of domestic food harvest, in terms of agriculture, in terms of business. So generally, access to ordinary commodities have become difficult in the region. So, and also the rainfall pattern for the past few months has difficult in the Eastern region. It was just this recent, that is July, August, that we've seen the rainfall pattern changing a bit, but we hope that going up, initially the Upper East, Upper West were those who were seriously having challenges, but they are in the harvest season where yam and some food crops are coming into the market. The one disturbing issue that which is above our control is the imported inflation, where our general taste for foreign imported goods is causing the inflation to go high. And another disturbing element that we keep hearing from government is that consistently Russia-Ukraine, anytime you make mention of Russia-Ukraine, it put out a picture to the investors that we don't have control of our domestic fundamentals, basically importation. That means domestically we don't have enough factories, or we don't have enough industries to produce enough to sort out our domestic demands. Right.
And then I think one thing also is that the Eastern region has some of the best hotels in the country who usually charge in dollars. Even the biggest hotel in Africa is located in this region. Could that also be a contributing factor to that figure?
That would do in terms of service structure, because when we look at general access to service, hospitality industry, that is what we can talk about. But in this instance, we're looking at the food basket that is considered in calculating the inflationary figure. So when we take that into consideration, we will look at the cases that have to do with transport fares. We have to look at health facility, recreational, and all those elements is what was considered. But if we are to look at the contribution of the services sector, it is most certainly that within the few years since the building up of that hotel facility, we will say services sector has increased astronomically over the years, because in the first quarter GDP for 2022, the services sector played a critical role in the general outlook of the figure.
Let's look at the Upper East region, which recorded the lowest of 19.8%, which was also way below the national average of almost 32%. Any surprise there?
I'm not surprised because over there I had information from some of our correspondents that access to simple commodities have flooded the market. Now people bring enough goods. People, even when you go to the market, you can buy a basket of tomatoes for just 10 cedis, and compared to Accra, that will be in the thousands of Ghana cedis. But that is something that we have to considerably deal with. One policy advice that possibly, if government considers, is to target the food basket,
right,
and formulate policies or strategies to deal with the food basket. Because if the food basket, the element in the food basket consistently keep rising,
right,
then why can't you strategize a policy? For instance, we keep importing maize. If you know the importation of maize is a challenge, right, then how can't you empower our local farmers in the country to, in a way, strategize enough to feed our domestic demands?
Interesting analysis there. Thank you very much, Winston Taki. Winston Taki is my colleague here at Metro Television. Now let's go onto the telephone lines and speak to Emmanuel Dakon, who is an economist, for a conversation on this. Emmanuel, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. So inflation is now almost 32%. We keep breaking records for the past few months. Is that really a cause for concern?
Definitely, but before that, let me say a very good afternoon to our viewers. Definitely is a cause for concern because it's one of the critical macroeconomic indicators that any fiscal policy or monetary policy proposition will look at to make a decision. And so it is quite worrying that inflation keeps on rising, but we all know the factors that are causing the inflation, especially from the external side. So the big question is, what can we do domestically to bring down the level of inflation and the rate of it as it is hitting almost 32% in June?
Right. Let's look into the future, Emmanuel. Are we likely to hit 50% inflation by the end of the year, looking at how the trends are going?
50% is on the higher side. But what can be done? And that is why I say that let's look at what we can do. We can see from the disaggregation of the figures is that imported inflation keeps on rising. Why is imported inflation rising? Is because it's largely linked to the depreciation of the Ghana cedi. Ghana cedi, we are told, has depreciated close to 30% from January as compared to the major trading currencies, especially the dollar. So the big question is, how will the monetary policy authorities arrest this depreciation of the cedi so that the amount we use to import goods into the country will be minimal, which will also feed into the inflation. The second point will be on the food side. Winston made an interesting comment on, not that food is not available domestically. Food is available, but haulage is a problem because of the increasing transport costs, which makes food haulage very expensive. So what should be government policy? Now, I've heard in the quarters from government that there are propositions for looking at how best there can be affordable haulage from food basket into the major cities. And I think if that is done, it will be able to reduce the volume of inflation coming from the food side. We have seen in videos whereby there's abundance of yam and other crops, but bringing them to the city centers, that is the challenge. How best do we solve that problem? Because petroleum prices are going up, which is fueled by the level of depreciation and also the prices of international crude oil on the international market. But what can be done domestically so that we reduce the level of increase in terms of inflation?
Let's talk about the Ghana cedi's depreciating value to the US dollar and also other major trading currencies like the euro and pounds. What can we really do to rescue the cedi?
In the interim, the short-term measure is for government to look at policies related to the use of dollars. I think it's about time we should have conversations about repatriation of profits from our economy, because Ghana is a largely, should I say, for a want of a better expression, foreign-owned economy. If you look at the major sectors of the economy, go to telcos, go to banking, go to insurance, the players are foreign investors. And when they are repatriating their profits, it puts a lot of pressure on our economy. Secondly, domestic non-resident investors. when they are also repatriating their dividends, it puts a lot of pressure on our currency, and more importantly, on the balance of payments side, we are not exporting as much as we should import. Hence, the balance of payment deficits, which is affecting our foreign reserves and also affecting our exchange rate. So these are conversations we should be able to have. But again, I must stress this point: the way the black market behaves in terms of how they hold foreign currency. I'm not sure that in any advanced economy you go and see people changing dollars or euros by the roadside. And I think it's a serious conversation we have to look at, because we don't even know the volumes of foreign exchange on the market for us to even properly regulate. And I think the Bank of Ghana should be able to take the bull by the horn to look at the regulation from that side, the black market side, because it's having a toll on the rate at which our currency is depreciating.
Right. Emmanuel Dakwa, thank you very much for speaking to us this afternoon. Away from that, former Deputy Information Minister Felix Kwachi Ofosu has restated calls for a national dialogue on the Ghanaian economy. This comes after the SNP's downgrade of the economy and the cedi depreciation.
The money that they give to governments that enter their programs belong to a revolving fund to which all their member countries contribute. So they are interested and are keen on recovering those monies. Because of that, if you come to them for a program and they determine that your economy is not in a position to manage those resources properly and be able to pay back, they are not going to give you the money upfront without demanding specific measures to ensure that you can pay. So right. Our debt is such that the IMF does not have confidence that we'll be able to pay. So it is most likely that they will ask us to restructure our debt. Those discussions revolving around restructuring can take up to a year or two. Indeed, only last week or the other, Zambia concluded 2 years of discussion with its creditors to restructure their debt before the IMF touched them with a long pole. So now we are looking at least 1 year interval between the time we made a request and the granting of the program. Right. Now, in between that time, the economy continues to deteriorate. The Minister for Finance presented a mid-year budget review about 2 to 3 weeks ago. Since then, the economy has continued to deteriorate to the point where S&P, one of the major international credit rating agencies, has downgraded us further.
Don't go anywhere, because we have more stories coming up for you after the break. Hello again. Now, the MP for Ningo Pram Pram, Sam George, has alleged that the Electoral Commission has lost its data from the electoral roll, hence the insistence for a compilation of a new register. In a Twitter post, Sam George indicated he got tip-off from a credible source. Here are details of the post. And it says, credible information available to me indicates that the Electoral Commission has lost data sets from the electoral roll, hence the insistence on the compilation of a new voters register under the guise of validation. The EC owes the Ghanaian people the truth. Right, let's go on to the telephone line and speak to the Member of Parliament for the people of Ningo Pram Pram, Sam George. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the program. We cannot really ascertain your claim, but can you elaborate how much data has been lost by the EC?
Well, a very good afternoon to your listeners. The information available to me points to the fact that when the Electoral Commission did the migration of data from the old STL managed data center to the new PESOL data center that they claim they ran. And don't forget, we warned them about that migration and the fact that some of the systems they were using were not compatible and the possible loss of data. They have lost some of the biometric data sets that they hold. And so this whole push for a new voters register that seeks to revoke the old voters register is simply a way of the EC trying to cover up its track. And the EC should just come out clear and let Ghanaians know this is what the problem is. Engage with the stakeholders, the political parties, in honesty and decency. And then we will all agree on what the modalities will be going forward. But the EC cannot try to play through the back door and play high and mighty when they've messed up the basic job they've been given to do. So, I mean, we're monitoring this space, and like we said, the tacit, benign attempt to do a whole compilation of a whole new register is there. If you read the revocation clauses in the CI that they have presented to Parliament, Section 33 of the CI, Regulation 33.3, it is clear in there what they are trying to do, because they talk about the revocation of the old register once they compile a new register.
Right. Sam George, the Electoral Commission has declined to comment on your claims, adding that it is not credible. So why should your source be believed?
We are challenging the Electoral Commission. You see, look, the Electoral Commission must know that they work for the people of this country. It is our taxpayers' money that is used to fund their activities. And I'm telling you that, and I'm challenging the Electoral Commission that the reason why they are trying to revoke the old electoral register and compile a new one is simply because they have misplaced data sets. If the Electoral Commission says that they won't comment on it, that in itself should let you know that they have stuff to hide. I'm daring the Electoral Commission of Ghana, Chin Mensah and Bosman Asari. If they say I am lying, they should allow Parliament, not Sam George, Parliament, to conduct an independent audit of their data sets. Let Parliament get, and Parliament has both sides of the political divide, let Parliament get a technical firm to conduct an audit of their data sets and see if they've not misplaced data sets. I'm daring the Electoral Commission on it.
Right. You keep insisting that they are ready to compile a new voters register. They also say that they are only compiling for new voters. Where from those claims?
Let me read Regulation 33 of the CI that they put, Revocations and Savings. Regulation 33.3. It says, despite the revocation under Sub-Regulation 1 and 2, and Sub-Regulation 1 and 2 are talking about the revocation of CI 91 and CI 126. But it says, despite those revocations, the existing register of voters, which is the current register, is saved under these regulations until a new one is compiled by the Electoral Commission. If you are not going to compile a new register, why are you putting an expiry date on this existing register? And why are you asking Ghanaians to now come with their voters ID, Ghana card, to come and do validation? If the old register is going to be maintained, why are you saying that there is an expiration date for it, and that when you compile a new one, that will cease to exist? If you have no intentions of compiling a new register, why do you say the old register will be invalid when you compile a new one? This is in their own CI. Okay. 33.3. So when the Electoral Commission tells you that they are not compiling a new register, they are lying. Chin Mensah and Bosman Asari are lying. And let us call a spade a spade. Those individuals are becoming a threat to the democracy that we have practiced since 1992. And we need to hold them responsible. They are not law unto themselves. They report to Parliament. And when we say that we have suspicions of this, they can't tell us they won't answer. They have every responsibility to respond to us and show proof that they have the data set there. We are saying the data set does not exist.
Right.
It's not complete.
Okay.
They should allow a forensic audit if they have nothing to hide.
All right. Sam George is the Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram. Thank you very much for speaking to us this afternoon. Now, traders at Mampontin, the Ashanti region, are in constant fear for their lives as they operate under a high-tension pole. The traders were relocated to their current place by the Municipal Assembly to pave way for the reconstruction.
The Mampontin market has been in existence for over 200 years. Traders and farmers from far and near used to converge at the market to sell their wares. In 2008, former President Ejiokum Kufuor initiated a move to reconstruct the market. However, in 2012, the NDC government budgeted to construct it into an ultra-modern state-of-the-art market complex, but work stalled in 2013. It's almost 10 years and the traders are still operating under this high-tension pylon, They also added that their present location, which is far from the roadside, has also affected their sales.
Akomatuo te se mframa forces ya ayame ya sa na mba mframa amfa na let kine ki kabom na titija bo ni edwane ano krasa ma pressure ye ho awu ye ntede te sade we yati ase ye ntede mene da kwa mente hwe no
Adding his voice to the call of traders, Chief of Mamponting, Burma says Siaya Boafo II says the situation is worrying, since traders have resorted to available space across the town for business.
The project, which led to the evacuation of the traders to pave way for the construction, has since depressed the numerous traders in the township who have no alternative space to ply their trade. This has resulted in traders using any available space across the township, creating nuisance with fooding structures and places not earmarked for suitable for such purposes.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Kwabri East Municipal Assembly, Opoku Ajimambonsu, urged the traders to remain calm as his office liaises with the Finance Ministry to revive the project.
Right, to other stories, as the commercial vehicle towing system, which was launched by the GPRTU on Tuesday, pending implementation in October, is expected to improve sanity on Ghana's roads. But the drivers who are still at the center of this policy seem unaware of the new system. Let's cross over to the 37 lorry station, where my colleague Abdallah Mohammed is stationed to bring us more. Abdallah, can you hear me? Hello, Abdallah?
Yeah, Ken, I can hear you.
Right. What more can you tell us?
All right, Ken. So this particular transport policy directive was introduced just yesterday, was actually announced just yesterday by the GPRTU at their office in Accra. And today we happen to be at the 37 lorry station, which is one of the major lorry terminals in the greater Accra region, to gauge the atmosphere of the driver unions here and also possibly find out from them whether this particular road policy would come to stay and whether they would readily accept and, as it were, operationalize this particular policy once it begins, the implementation begins somewhere around October. Between August and September, this particular policy is going to be piloted at the various lorry terminals. And in your shot is the 37 military hospital lorry terminal, where you can see a lot of taxis and commercial vehicles. And I earlier spoke to some of the drivers, and I must say, Ken, that a lot of them, almost all the drivers are engaged here, told me that they had no clue whatsoever about this particular policy. I then proceeded to speak to some of their executives who were actually locked up in a meeting when I went to meet them. And what they are essentially saying is that they were actually part of that planning process for the full implementation of this particular policy. And essentially what they are saying is that they are yet to come to the grounds and actually engage the drivers here to explain to them the rationale behind this particular policy and explain to them why we they need this particular policy in order to sanitize the road and ensure that the streets are rid from broken down vehicles, which you and I would admit have caused accidents and actually caused a lot of problems on our major routes. So, Ken, essentially that is the issue here. I've spoken to the executives who are telling me that in the coming weeks, they would come down to the drivers level, engage them and explain to them this particular policy before the implementation happens somewhere in October 2022.
Abdallah Mohammed, grateful for talking to us this afternoon. He's our correspondent on the ground. Now it's now time for business, and Winston Taki is standing by with the latest. Winston, take us away.
All right, your popular WhatsApp app has now a new privacy feature. These and more after this. And now to a first business story. The government of Ghana is looking forward to receive $3 billion over 3 years from the International Monetary Fund once an agreement on the program is reached. The new amount requested as a loan is double the government's initial target of $1.5 billion.
According to the international news agency Bloomberg, the new amount requested as a loan was double the government's initial target of $1.5 billion. Ghana's government is in talks over a loan of about $3 billion from the International Monetary Fund. An IMF emailed response to the news outlet also indicated that it was too early to comment on the subject, maintaining that the executive board of the Bretton Woods institution ultimately wielded power in determining the program for Ghana. The IMF, in response to the news outlet, said the negotiations for the program is starting now, and for that matter, it's too early to comment on the final form the program will take. The Extended Credit Facility for Low-Income Countries is the fund's main tool for medium-term support for countries facing protracted balance of payment problems similar to Ghana's. The duration of such an arrangement is between 3 to 4 years and extendable to 5 years. The final program is ultimately decided by the IMF's executive board. It will be recalled that the government on June 1 made a U-turn on its strong position of not seeking support from the IMF amid an economic downturn. A team from the IMF arrived in the country on July 6 and engaged Ghanaian authorities for a program aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and safeguarding debt sustainability, among many others. The government has continuously maintained that it will negotiate a good deal with the International Monetary Fund.
Now, away from that, WhatsApp is introducing 3 privacy tweaks into the messaging app to provide even more layers of protection. You as a user can now quietly exit groups, choose who can, and more importantly, cannot see you online, and will have the ability to block others from taking screenshots or view one's messages.
The most popular instant messaging app, the Meta-owned WhatsApp, has announced a new set of privacy features that should add a layer of protection to chats and visibility. You, as a user, can now quietly exit groups, choose who can and more importantly cannot see you online, and will have the ability to block others from taking screenshots or views one's messages. The View Once features, which was rolled out last year August, will now have an added layer of privacy. Till now, leaving groups was a fairly public activity wherein every member of the group will be notified of your exit from the group. That may lead to inconvenient conversations later about why you may have left a WhatsApp group. Now, only the group admin will be notified when participants quietly exit a group. The View Once messages are unique in the sense that they allow users to share a message or media which can be deleted after it has been seen by the recipient with no trail left of that message. However, there was one loophole. A user could take a screenshot of the message before it disappeared. The next update for the functionality will be able to block the ability to take screenshots on any phone while a View Once message is still visible on the screen. Later this month, the online status and group exits update will be rolled out for all users, including Android phones and Apple iPhones. The View Once screenshot block feature, however, may take a little longer. This feature is being tested and will be rolled out to users soon, confirmed by Meta. WhatsApp has been on a feature addition spree this year. The highlights include the ability for Android users to switch chat lock, stock and barrel to a new iPhone, the option to speed up voice notes, and expanding the scope of emoji reactions for messages after an initial rollout with limited reactions.
Let's now bring you an update from the Forex and commodities market. That'll be all for business here on Newsbeat. My name is Winston Taki. Sports is next with Phil John Corte after this break.
Forty-five past midday in the Ghanaian capital of Accra. My name is Phil John Corte and it's time for sports. The Confederation of African Football has launched a new football tournament which will involve 24 clubs in Africa. The president of the Confederation of African Football, Patrick Motsepe, announced this earlier today.
The other issue about the African Super League is we want to give every single member association, every single country in the 54 African countries that are part of CAF, give them a $1 million contribution every year to use to develop football amongst the youth, young boys, young girls, use that money as well to make sure that we employ some of the best people in each country in Africa to be involved in running football and also pay them competitive salaries. One of the biggest problems of the top African clubs participating in the current Champions League is they spend a lot of money on transport and they spend a lot of money on accommodation, and when they win, the money they get does not justify or compensate for the huge expenses they've undertaken. So the first 24 clubs that we want to be part of the African Football League, we will give them a contribution every year of $2.5 million to use, and I know they'll use some of that money to buy and recruit some of the best players on the continent, but also to assist with their transport and with all of the other expenses. The two other issues before I ask Gianni to make his remarks is, our intention is to use $100 million, to make $100 million available as prize money every year in the African Super League. So the club that wins will get $11.5 million. Very, very important.
Well, that's your midday sports. My name is Phil John Corte. Yaya is ready for showbiz.
Thank you, Johnny. Up next is entertainment news. My name is Sanaya Tano Boache. To our first story, Nigerian singer Kiss Daniels has rendered an apology to his Tanzanian fans for failure to show up at a paid-for music concert at the Warehouse Old Next Door Arena in Tanzania. In a press conference held, Kiss Daniels has promised a free show on Friday, 12 August 2022.
Popular Nigerian singer Kiss Daniel was arrested in Tanzania over his failure to perform at a show he was paid for. According to reports, the singer blatantly refused to perform due to unavailability of his clothes he allegedly forgot in Uganda. Tanzanian police officers picked up the Buga singer in police pickup alongside two other people and his management team at the Johari Rotana Hotel in the city center. In a short video seen on social media, Kiss Daniel has held a press conference on explaining his side of the story, apologizing to fans and promised a free show on Friday. He said, "The people were already going wild, the fans were going wild, which I know was out of love, so no disrespect to the fans. I was asked to stay back. You can't go. It's not safe." So I said, okay. I sat down with the team, the organizers, the promoters. Let's come up with a way to make it up to the Tanzanian fans, and we decided to do a makeup show for free. I even agreed to partner with them this time around. He added, "This Friday, a free show. I will be partnering with Straight Up Vibes to make that happen. I must apologize to the fans. None of this was intentional."
Now, away from that, Ghanaian dancehall artist Shatta Wale has garnered himself an RIAA Gold certification for his contribution to the smash hit song Already, released by Parkwood Entertainment's Columbia Records. According to the Recording Industry Association of America, Shatta Wale's Already collaboration with Beyoncé for her The Lion King, The Gift has reached a huge feat on Monday, August 8th, after garnering over 500,000 unit sales in USA. This achievement makes Shatta Wale the first Ghanaian artist after Fuse ODG to have such a certification. In 2020, Ghanaian music star and Azonto hitmaker Fuse ODG received an RIAA Gold certification for his collaboration with Major Lazer and Nala Brick and Lace on Light It Up remix. That's all on entertainment news. My name is Anaya Tanobwache. Ken, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nanaya. International news is next. Let's take you to Kenya, where logistical delays and a failure of the identification kit in some parts of the country marred a largely peaceful election day in that country. Polls are now officially closed, but voting has been extended in places which opened late and counting is still ongoing.
This vote follows an intense campaign dominated by debates about living costs, unemployment and corruption. The frontrunners for president are ex-Prime Minister Raila Odinga and current Deputy President William Ruto. A top election official in Kenya's central region of Nyeri told journalists that turnout has been low in that part of the country compared to 2017. The counting of votes, which takes place at the polling stations, was expected to start soon after they closed with the collation of the presidential votes a priority. Earlier, Mr. Odinga was mobbed by supporters when he went to vote in Kibra, one of his strongholds in the capital, Nairobi. Voters were identified by the thumb or fingerprints. This election looks like it will be a tight race between frontrunners Mr. Odinga, 77, and Mr. Ruto, 55. Mozambique has banned people from filming accidents or disaster scenes before calling in the emergency authorities to provide assistance. The move is aimed at changing the attitudes of citizens who only take photos of accidents or other emergency situations and publish them on social media. A Coast Guard vessel has arrived with some dead bodies of migrants at the port of Velthi on the eastern Greek island of Samos. Greek authorities say a big search and rescue operation has been launched east of the island of Karpathos after a boat reportedly carrying dozens of migrants and refugees sank overnight.
That's all time will allow for Newsbeat this afternoon. My name is Kenneth Jesse. Bye for now.